Sekejap ya. I'm having I'm presenting now. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, thanks ya. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Saya Faiz Mahmud dari Yayasan Penyelidikan Antartika Sultan Mizan selaku moderator sesi Planet Talk Apa Kata Pakar pada hari ini. Terima kasih atas kelapangan masa untuk semua penonton yang ada di YouTube dan juga di platform Zoom untuk sama-sama kita mendengar sesi webinar di sebalik bumi, pengembaraan ais dan hidupan liar. Antartika seperti yang kita ketahui merupakan salah satu benua yang terbesar di dunia dan keluasannya lebih kurang 14 juta kilometer persegi dan ianya berada di kutub selatan. Dan keluasan Antartika lebih kurang 2 kali ganda saiz Australia. Dan jadi penonton boleh bayangkan ya betapa besarnya saiz Antartika ini. Dan secara purata, ketebalan ais di Antartika lebih kurang 1.9 km dan ketebalan maksimum ais di Antartika itu boleh mencapai sehingga 5 km. Jadi dengan mempunyai persekitaran yang putih serta ditutupi ais, Antartika ini merupakan salah satu tempat yang mungkin kita boleh katakan sebagai tempat yang menakjubkan di dunia, termasuklah dengan flora dan fauna yang berada di sana. Jadi bagi sesi perkongsian pada bulan ini, kami bawakan khas kepada anda Profesor Madya Dr. Japaran Lalung yang merupakan pensyarah dari Pusat Pengajian Teknologi Industri University Sains Malaysia. Jadi Dr. Japaran juga merupakan penerima grant penyelidikan YPASM pada tahun 2021. Jadi melalui perkongsian ini, beliau akan berkongsi mengenai keistimewaan yang ada di Antartika, terutamanya flora dan fauna. Melalui pengalaman beliau menjalankan kajian di wilayah polar. Perkongsian ini juga akan mengupas erti semangat Malaysia sehingga mampu menjelajah ke benua Antartika. Beliau juga turut mempunyai minat dalam dunia fotografi dan mungkin para penonton di YouTube serta di Zoom tertanya-tanya buat apa kita ke sana. Maksudnya ada apa yang ada di Antartika tu dan apa kaitannya dengan kita di sini. Jadi soalan-soalan itu para penonton boleh mengemukakan soalan di ruangan chat di sebelah kanan YouTube ataupun di platform Zoom ini dan soalan-soalan tersebut akan dijawab pada sesi akhir perkongsian ini. Jadi tanpa membuang masa lagi, saya persilakan Dr. Japaran.
Assalamualaikum Encik Faiz. Terima kasih atas jemputan. Boleh saya share my file now, my presentation-nya? Alright.
Video.
Boleh nampak ya, Faiz?
Boleh.
And my camera tak boleh on ya?
Tak keluar.
Yeah, I cannot. You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. That means tak boleh start the video. Oh, start my video. Okay, that's it. Okay, terima kasih Encik Faiz and also terima kasih kepada Yayasan Penyelidikan Antartika Sultan Mizan kerana menjemput saya untuk sharing sessions pada hari ini. And So hari ini saya akan bercerita sedikit mengenai kajian di Antartika, climate change, dan ice and wildlife adventure. Jadi sedikit pengenalan, sebenarnya seperti yang dinyatakan oleh Encik Muhammad Faiz, saya adalah penerima birth support, maksudnya trip ke Antartika sebanyak 2 kali melalui Yayasan Penyelidikan Antartika Sultan Mizan pada tahun 2015. Pertama kali saya pergi dan kembali pada 2016, dan pada tahun lepas juga 2023 saya pergi sekali lagi. Dan saya juga dapat research grant daripada Yayasan Penyelidikan Antartika Sultan Mizan. So thank you very much. So today, let me see if the slides is working. Okay, so I think before we start, I wanted to say thank you very much for the people and the institutions who's actually backing up this research. We have Paula at USM, we have National Antarctic Research Center in Malaysia, and we have Kementerian Sumber Asli, Alam Sekitar dan Perubahan Iklim, and of course Yayasan Penyelidikan Antartika Sultan Mizan. And our collaborators, British Antarctic Survey, University of Chile, University Malaya, University Putra Malaysia, and IMU. And of course, the people behind, there are actually so many of them to mention one by one. And I think a bit of introduction about myself. So I'm currently associate professor at the School of Industrial Technology, University Science Malaysia. I'm also the Deputy Dean for Research, and I'm currently the coordinator of Regional Center for Expertise at the Center for Global Sustainability Studies at University Science Malaysia. And I teach environmental forensic, environmental science, environmental management, environmental microbiology, and a few other subjects. And of course, my qualification, University of Malaya, University of Oxford, and also University of Leeds in the United Kingdom. And I used to work with Puncak Niaga as water resources manager, and before I joined the university. Now, I was also working at the scientific monitoring program of Putrajaya Lake and Wetlands for 5 years. And this is my research interest on water, cyanobacteria, blue green algae, DNA, and microbiology. And of course, I like photography. And a bit of introduction about the faculty that I'm teaching. We have a fall program, environmental technology. And this is my current team working in our lab, about 17 people altogether, including postdocs, PhD students, master students, and undergraduate students. And I'm also a consultant for Air Selangor and some other companies. Okay. Now we're talking about research interest, which is Antarctica. This picture was taken in 2023 when I went there last year. Sunrise in the morning, actually very nice. Unfortunately, most of the time when the weather is nice, I'm actually going out for sampling. And most of the time when I've got a chance to take picture, I was actually in the base because the weather was not good. So these are among the good times when the weather is fine. And this is just before I went out to take the samples. Oh, and I wrote a book in 2021 about Antarctic research experience. If you have a chance, maybe you can have a look. It's called My Eyes Were Out on Stalks. So a bit of introduction about Antarctic research. So basically, the Antarctic governance landscape is complex, and actually it involves global and domestic levels, and it is actually being influenced by various actors. So the Antarctic Treaty is actually the second largest treaty after the United Nations. I don't know if you understand about treaty. Basically, after the Second World War, countries all over the world sit together and decided that they wanted to have an institution to resolve any issues. So that was the United Nations. And the second largest after that is the Antarctic Treaty. And of course, every countries, normally not every, but many countries who wants to do research on Antarctica have their own national Antarctic program. And they demonstrate scientific expertise and they adhere to the Antarctic Treaty. In Malaysia, we have Yayasan Penyelidikan Antartika Sultan Mizan, or National Antarctic Research Center. And in USM, University of Science Malaysia, we have Pola at USM. And I think I want to talk about this because normally Yayasan Penyelidikan Antartika Sultan Mizan, they're going to offer research grants. So if you're working with university, I think they're going to open the call for this year. This was last year, and I think for this year, I think they're going to open in probably October. I think Faiz will know this better, but keep on asking about this because there are a lot of money being offered, altogether about 1.25 million. I think there are more this year. So if you are university researchers or doing research on are planning to do research on Antarctica, this is what you should look for. And I've got a chance to go to Antarctica again under the same scheme by Yayasan Penyelidikan Antartika Sultan Mizan. And why Antarctic research is important in understanding climate change, because actually it actually holds a lot of information about climate change. So Antarctica houses the largest ice sheet on Earth. And if you study the ice, you will see the impact of rising temperature on global sea levels. How? Because any changes in Antarctica will directly contribute to rising sea levels worldwide, and understanding the mechanisms behind ice sheets dynamic helps predict and prepare for future sea level changes, crucial for coastal community and infrastructure. I actually want to talk about some very basic thing, because Antarctica is extremely sensitive to changes and in global climate, and observe shift such as melting glaciers, changing ice shelf structures, and variations in wildlife behavior acts as early indicators of a broader climate trends affecting the planet. But I think I'm just gonna pass this because I wanted to talk about carbon dioxide. And because I think a lot of us are very well aware the fact that carbon dioxide is actually contributing towards climate change or global warming. The more carbon dioxides, the higher the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere will actually will cause a higher temperature of the Earth. And how is that so? And I think during my talk, many times I realized that students or even professionals doesn't understand the link and how it can actually be proven the fact that carbon dioxide is actually contributing towards climate change. And the research actually started in Antarctica. But before we start, I think I wanted to talk about a very basic climate terms, which is the glacial periods and interglacial periods. So the glacial and interglacials, it's very important to understand because a lot of climate skeptics keep on saying that climate change is not real, global warming is not real because it has happened before. So it is very important to understand these two concepts. Glacial periods means colder climate, because what happened is that basically in winter, the ice is going to be formed. Not in Malaysia, but in temperate countries in the North Pole or South Pole, ice is going to be formed in winter and ice is going to melt in summer. So the glacial period is the time when there are more ice formed in winter than melt in summer. So by years, the ice is going to be accumulated. And reversely, I mean, the opposite happens during interglacial periods where there are more ice that melt in summer than formed in winter. So as the time goes by, the ice is going to melt, and we're going to have a little amount of ice. And these things has happened many times before. So some climate skeptic can say that, well, nothing that the man can do because even without human on Earth, interglacial period has happened before. So this is a very strong argument. And when was the last time glacial period happened? It's about 26,000 to 19,000 years ago. And how do we link climate change or global warming with CO2 level? So in Antarctica, they have ice core data. If you think about the glacial period where the ice is formed, so basically when the ice is formed, it also trapped gases, and not only water, but also gases, including carbon dioxide. So you will have it inside the ice. And if you dig deeper, so the deeper the ice is, the older it is. So we can then, because CO2 is trapped there, we can then know the concentration of CO2 during that time. And now we know the concentration of CO2 during that time, and then we wanted to link it with the temperature. We know the concentration of CO2, but we didn't know the temperature during that time. So, and how do we then know the temperature of the Earth during that time? I'm going to skip this and yep. And then we can also actually analyze not only that the ice trapped CO2, it also trapped other gases. For example, oxygen and hydrogen. And the ratio, oxygen and hydrogen, they have like something like called stable isotope. You know, they have different isotopes. I'm not going to go into detail, but what you need to know is that the ratio difference of isotopes correlates with temperature variation. It means that if you know the ratio, you know when the temperature when the gas was trapped. Because warmer temperature leads to lighter isotopic ratios in the ice. So you now know the temperature that the ice was formed, and now you know the concentration of CO2 during the time when it was formed. And if you link it, you will realize that the higher the CO2 concentration, the higher the temperature when it was formed. Now, then we know that there is a direct correlation between CO2 concentration and the temperature of the Earth. And that is the reason why, if we wanted to reduce the temperature or to avoid a global warming, we reduce the amount of CO2. And of course, it happened before, but if you look at this figure, you will realize that never before that the speed is that fast. You know, since the Industrial Revolution, when CO2 concentration is basically increasing so much, the temperature is also increasing very, very rapidly. And if you're not stopping this, it's going to be dangerous. And of course, because of climate change, the sea level is going to rise, and countries like Maldives and Kiribati is going to disappear. There's going to be more strong wind and bad weather. So the whole work is actually towards carbon capture and reducing CO2 emissions, because we know by reducing the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, we're going to reduce global warming. But of course, we tend to blame climate change for everything. For example, in my research, I'm doing on basically blue-green algae. I don't know if you know this, that little thing you see on the slides, the algae, blue-green algae, you can see it on the sea, and some of them has toxin. And a lot of the time we blame climate change for everything, including cyanobacterial toxin spread. And that's the reason why I do research in Antarctica. I wanted to see if the cyanobacterial toxin is actually present in Antarctica. And we also work with all samples. And then I also went there to do some collections. And then this is me taking samples last year. So I wanted to know, because if the spread of the cyanobacterial toxin has happened everywhere, I think the last continent that should be affected is Antarctica. And we look at the current sample, and also we look at the previous samples taken like even more than 100 years ago, because some people has collected the samples long time ago, and they preserve it, and of course in freezer, and then we look at the samples if they have the toxin. But I think in our case, we realize that we see more toxin now because more research has been done, not because it is spreading, because it's actually quite similar now and then. But my research in Antarctica teaches me about a lot of things about preservation. For example, degradation is actually caused by temperature, chemical lights, physical and microbes. and I actually apply this at home. So this is what my freezer look like at home, and then I can keep the samples, my food for a very long time, because in Antarctica, I ate chocolates from 1986, because as long as you don't have the microbes, you don't have the temperature is very low, and there is no lights, and there is no chemical, and samples can last forever. And after coming back from Antarctica, I actually stopped in London because our collaborator was the British Antarctic Survey. And I came across Climate March in May 2023. This was last year. And I noticed, I decided to actually join the conversation with them. And a lot of them are actually very, very enthusiastic about climate change. And they march and they say the same cliche things. The government must do something. We need change. And then when I had a discussion with some of the focus group, some of them, and then we discussed about SDG, or Sustainable Development Goal, or Millennium Development Goal, or ESG. Surprisingly, many of them have no idea about this. And they keep on saying that something must be done, we need change. But what are the things that need to be done? What are the changes that need to be done? This is not clear. I mean, to me, like marching alone on the street and say, we can do something, the government should do something, you betray us, whatever. I think it's not fair, because it's very easy to complain, but not knowing what exactly needed to do. Because the people who actually march on the street, I think if they're given a chance to rule, they're going to do even worse, because they don't have the knowledge. And for that reasons, there is a say by this guy, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's probably Dragos Bratsanu. He says, passion without this wisdom destroys itself. Because if you're passionate about climate change, but you know nothing about climate change, you don't know why CO2 is affecting the rising temperature, and you don't know what needs to be done, you just want change, but what exactly the change which is needed, then it is very dangerous. The moral is, knowledge is very important. Education is very important. And this is what I want to link with what we do in the Center for Global Sustainability Studies under United Nations University. We have a unit called Regional Center for Expertise in Penang, and it's actually promoting educational for sustainable development, or ESD, because we believe that with education, then we can raise the awareness and also the right action for climate change. Because like the previous guy said, patience without wisdom destroys itself. Without knowledge, you cannot combat climate change. Marching on the street, asking for change, not knowing what exactly the change that needs to be done, is not going to help. So at this RCE Penang, we do education for sustainable development, and this is the list, and I'm currently the coordinator. We are hosted by the Center for Global Sustainability Studies at University of Science Malaysia, and we basically among the oldest regional center of expertise in the world, the first 7, and there were like some universities from Japan, mostly Korea, and also Malaysia. And we have unit called Sejahtera Club. This is designed for school children. We try to embed education for sustainable development to primary and secondary school students, and also Sejahtera Youth, which is focusing on university students, and regional Sejahtera ESD network, RSEN. Basically, this is focusing into all the other stakeholders in the northern region of Penang. A bit of background, but I don't want to talk about this, but basically it was established by the 2002 United Nations General Assembly. And our main center is actually at the United Nations University in Tokyo. So this is what we did last year. For example, I'm just going to give a bit of what we have done. I don't want to talk about the background anymore because it's going to be long. So started from 7 in 2005. Now there are about 200, and Penang was among the first 7. And by 2024, there are about 200 now. And this is what we've done recently. but I want to focus into some recent ones, including this mangrove planting activities that we have done. And the reason why we do mangrove planting is not only to plant the mangrove a bit, but also to basically educate the people, the villages around the mangrove, because if you just want to plant it, it's going to be very easy to ask the contractor, but we don't want to do that because we want the people to know that mangrove is very important so that they will not cut it. So in our mangrove planting activities, what we do is that we also embed education part where we actually teach the school children about the importance of mangrove, and these people are going to grow up and protect the mangrove. And we also involved with the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change in Northern Africa and Middle East. There were about 50 people from University of Science Malaysia who went to Riyadh last year. And we do international best practices setting sessions. This is to 2023, where schools are actually sharing the best practice towards sustainability in their schools, and we exchange their knowledge, and one can learn from each other. So we have participants from Qatar, India, Indonesia, China, and many other universities. And we also write books on sustainability or education for sustainable development. And this was actually written by our students. And not only that, it was written by them, they also visit kindergarten and read the storybook on sustainability towards the kindergarten students, so that these students understand about sustainability from the very early stage. And of course, we did mangrove planting again and again. It has been a practice for the past 5 years, and we have another 5 years to go for our new plan for now. And we won some awards. I'm not going to talk about that. And we also teach about system thinking, because it's systematic thinking is actually very important, because this is for us to understand whatever that we're doing is going to be linked to another. And that was 2023 and 2024. We did the mangrove again and international best practice sharing sessions again. And we also joined the Asia Pacific Regional Meeting for RCE, Education for Sustainable Development. This was actually just last week in Kyrgyzstan. And we have a bit of more planning, but I'm going to skip this and I'm going to talk about another part of the talk today, which is talking about photography in Antarctica, because I think the whole idea of the talk today is to encourage students to embark on Antarctic research. So this was a picture I took, I think in February last year, from the base. It's very nice cloud, and you see iceberg behind right in the morning when the weather is very clear. It doesn't happen always, because most of the time it's going to be snowing or strong wind. And we went to an island called Leone, and this is Aspa Island, or Antarctic Special Protection Area, protected area. It's probably among the very little people who have the access into here. We were given access because we went there for research. So elephant seal, big, huge, tons of them, sound very strong, and I was basically sitting there and waiting for them to basically try to attack each other before I snapped this. This was a whole new experience, very nice. And if you're lucky, you will be given training to drive this Volvo. This is the biggest vehicle I've ever driven in my life. So basically, if you're there, you need to have multiple skills. But don't worry, because I went there with the British Antarctic Survey. They actually teach you how to do it. And I was very happy that I've got the chance to basically drive the biggest vehicle ever in my life. If you see the chains on the wheel, it is actually for the snow, because otherwise it's going to be very slippery. And sometimes the lights is just too strong, and the wind was too strong. You completely cover your whole face. This was just in front of the base, but I like the fact that I have Malaysian flag on my hat, and when I take picture, people know that it's actually someone from Malaysia. Adelie penguin, lots of them in Rothera and also Sydney in the British Antarctic Survey. And if you look at this, I was there during Hari Raya, so I wanted to pose for Hari Raya. If you look at the jacket on the left-hand side, so the whole thing is just for posing because it was very cold. So I removed my jacket and probably spent about 30 seconds taking the picture and put back all the jackets. It was indeed very cold. And we've got a chance to go to the hangar. The hangar is the place where they put the planes. And sometimes you're given a chance if you to actually go into the cockpit and to pretend to be a pilot. So this is my only ever chance to actually go into a cockpit. When after SPM, I planned to become a pilot for Mars, but I didn't go for the interview. So for me, this was like a dream come true because I've always been also wanting to become a pilot. This was in the ship. You can see together with the luggage, we are basically, because the Dash 7 is the name of the plane that we're flying with to Antarctica. It is a small plane and they put you in, there is basically only one compartment where you can see all your luggage. So I was basically posing and behind there was our luggage. And this is the lagoon. Dr. Felix is our medical doctor. Normally when we explore, we're going to have a few people. And this time, Felix was very nice to go with me, although he's a medical doctor. But obviously you can see that we all are multiple tasking and you have to be very fit also. So not only that he became a medical doctor, but at the same time, he can also help me with collecting my samples. This iceberg near our base, many of them, and they keep on changing. This is fur seal. Fur seal is actually quite special because it used to be hunted into almost extinction, but now the population is coming back, and they used to use it for the fur for jacket, expensive jacket, but now it's back. So it's very nice to see them coming back. I enjoy my time taking picture of this fur seal, but they can be quite dangerous if they bite you. Try not to get bitten, but I know the technique from my previous trip in Sydney, because if you make sound, they're going to run away from you. So be careful not to step on them because you don't want them to bite you, because in Antarctica, they're not so much, they're basically almost no good healthcare, so you don't want to get injured at all. But it's very nice to observe them. This is Felix again. If you see the bird is attacking and he actually bent down, that's because the bird is gonna attack the highest point of view and you don't want your hand to be attacked. So that's why when I saw this, I was actually observing him from afar. I was collecting my sample and I saw him and then I just snapped this picture. I find it very, very nice. Another iceberg in the morning. Every now and then you wake up and see different iceberg coming and going, and it's always exciting to see them. And sometimes when the cloud is a bit dark, I think it's very dramatic. It feels like watching, a movie. Another sunset in the morning. If you see the sea is actually half frozen, and you can see that the ice is basically with the wave is gonna. You can see the ice is actually being carried away to the shore by the wave. It's actually, and they make sound because they are basically friction with each other. So it's a nice experience. And again, the fur seal, sometimes I sit there waiting for them. And of course, we also sometimes need to use this skidoo. And don't worry, it's actually quite easy to ride. And with the British Antarctic Survey, they're gonna train you first before you are allowed to travel with this skidoo. It helps you a lot actually because we can actually go quite far with this skidoo compared to walking. So that was me on the second from the right. And the lagoon is also very special. This is the time when I was waiting for our team to come and pick us up. We spent overnight in a small huts over there, and they come in the morning to pick us up. And sometimes you can see a sunlight between the cracks. I find it very interesting because basically it's almost like a lava coming out of the ice, but it's actually a reflection of the sun. And this is how we travel by boats. Adelie penguin again. Sometimes when I finish sampling, and because they left us to collect the samples and they went, everybody else is doing another science, and sometimes I finish early. So I actually took picture of my team members taking samples somewhere else, and this was at Leone. And of course, sometimes we like to do handstand. This was at McCare Point. We wanted to be the access into here is actually quite difficult, and it's very limited. And we wanted to be like the first person who do handstand at this McCare Point. If I don't know if you noticed that there is a seal on the left hand side, which eventually tried to attack us, but we ran away. And this was my team. That was Ili and Emmy, sorry, yeah. I was collecting the samples. Again, if you see, this is actually ice, and this is algae or cyanobacteria. When the ice was formed, there is lights, and the cyanobacteria was blooming, and then the ice cover them, and then bloom again and cover them. That's why you can actually sample the blue-green algae inside the ice. So when it was melting like this, I've got a chance to sample them. But I have to be very careful because it might collapse, but I've got my team backing me up from behind. I think in this case, Jim, that was actually slow. Jim snapped this picture when I was taking the samples. Sometimes the biggest challenge in Antarctica is not the temperature, because I think we can survive -20 or -30. There's no problem, but the wind, the strong wind is the problem. We call it gust. And before going to Antarctica, I didn't understand about the speed of the wind, but now I know that 40 knots is actually not very good. 60 knots don't go out. 20 knots might be okay. And sometimes when the wind comes, it actually blows into your face. And when you smile, your face is almost frozen, but still good experience. And sometimes I spend times actually watching this fossil fighting. It's actually very mind-blowing. And I wanted to snap this. I wanted to make sure that they're actually facing each other. So I waited for hours. This is actually not very easy to take because I waited for hours until I got the right moment. And this is the Dash 7 that we were flying with. And sometime this time I was not flying with it, but it was like taking another passengers. But because the airport is basically just next to our lab, so I wanted to snap it when it's exactly facing me, and I was very happy that I've got this this shot because it was exactly facing towards me. And this is the vessel that we ship coming back with. This is called Sir David Attenborough. It's actually a very, very expensive icebreaker. I don't know if you know Sir David Attenborough. He is probably the most famous environmentalist still alive now. And we sailed with that ship. Was amazing. And that's also the reasons why I wanted to go in 2022, because I knew that the British Antarctic Survey just basically had this new vessel. So I think my year 2023 was the second year that the vessel was operated. I didn't want to go during the first year because I hope that they're going to fix if there is any issues. So the second year was perfect, which exactly goes as planned. Sometimes you see the penguin is queuing with and walking like as if like they are school children. This is a very nice experience. I've got video, but this is the picture. And this is the hut. And if you see the elephant seal in front of it, we sleep inside this hut. But the first thing that we need to do is actually to chase the white elephant out, because otherwise they're going to make a lot of noise and they might be dangerous. It's very nice to sleep in there. We use beds made of sheep wool. Of course, me on Skidoo. And the elephants, me collecting samples again. Sometimes you have to go very deep to find the blue-green algae, because most of the time it's actually covered by snow and you don't know where to dig. But when you've got a chance to see them, you go all the way to find them. Elephant seal fighting. This is my team, Nadia and Felix and me. And our chef, he is cooking for us, which is very nice. Of course, this is only acting because it was very, very cold. I like to snap this because this is a seal, but if you see the two lights behind, this is because the seal is actually on a runway of the airport. So basically, this is a runway of the airport, and you can see the lights behind. That's the lights from the airport. So the seal is on the airport because the airport is the field, the airport is the place where the seal is flying. So yeah, it's very nice. Piston bully, we also trouble with this because this is very comfortable and actually very strong. And this is the view before we go skiing in the morning. The view from our base, the hut that we're sleeping, that is Elizabeth, another doctor that we have there. At that time, he actually he went and joined me for sampling sheep. And this is Leonie again on the beach. I like this picture because you can see the seal and also the birds and the ice, and the birds and the seal and the ice. Humpback, sometimes on the way back from some of our stations, we actually lucky because we see this humpback, but this is actually a rare opportunity. And that time I was very happy because this is my first time ever being able to see the humpback whale. And I like this picture because it tells a lot of story because you can see the people there on the left-hand side, right-hand side, but they were it looks like as if they were walking from nowhere, but that happens because it was snowing and then they actually went there and then it was snowing and come back. That's why their dresses were not there. But in reality, when they make their way back, it was after the snow. And this is normally very sentimental moments because you know, every time you see your friends applying home, you have the feeling that you also wanted to go home. You can see that is actually the tail of a plane. And Hari Raya was different, but posting is always on. I think I'm going to stop here because it's going to be quite long, and I think we only have about 15 minutes left. Is that okay, Faiz, Mr. Faiz? Thank you very much. Faiz, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Because do we have more time? Should I continue or should I stop here? I think I should just stop because we only have like 15 minutes left.
So maybe we can proceed to the question, Doctor.
If there is any, thank you very much. Yeah.
So yeah, we have a few questions, which is during your expedition, maybe you can share with us what is the biggest challenge when you were there and how did you overcome it?
Okay, thank you. Oh, I think what's the biggest challenge? I wouldn't want to take it as a challenge because I would say the biggest thing to learn about instead of challenge, I think knowledge. It's very important to have the knowledge. So basically, you need to learn before you go there. You cannot just go. There are a few things in life that you can do mistakes, but some you cannot. I don't know if you know, there is an author called Paulo Coelho. In his book, he said it's okay to do mistake, but not the one that destroys your life. So like scuba diving and going to Antarctica, you have to be prepared because once you do mistake, maybe you will die. It's not like answering your exam questions. If you're not prepared, you can fail, but you still survive. So to go to Antarctica, you need knowledge. For example, you need to pass the personal safety training. So you need to be able to swim, you need to be able to jump, you need to be fit, and you need to know that when the wind is strong, then don't go out. If there is a limit, you cannot do mistakes. So if it is like 40 gust, 40 knots, then don't go out. And don't just simply try because whatever happened to you, it's going to cause problem towards your team also. So you cannot do mistake. For example, eat before you go out, because if you don't eat, you're going to be probably die of hypothermia because you're going to feel very cold. So there is no excuse of not eating because it's going to be dangerous. So I think knowledge is very important. I've got an issue actually in my expedition in 2015 when my samples, I basically finish all my media to culture my strains and then to culture my samples. In Malaysia, you can just buy a new one or wait, but over there is no time to buy, there is no time to wait. So I have to basically create or make use of all the resources that I have. So I think knowledge is very important, and yeah, I think I would say like challenge, or yeah, that is probably the challenge. But every time we learn new things, and so we can actually turn the challenge into a good experience. So yes, be prepared. I think that is what I can say. I don't know if that answers the question.
Okay. So Dr. we also have a question from the viewer. So good afternoon, Doctor. What are the major findings for your research in Antarctica and that you can share with us?
Okay. So one of the biggest question that we wanted to know is because now we're going into a very scientific matter, yeah. So my research is about knowing about wanting to know whether I do research on toxin-producing cyanobacteria. We wanted to know whether it is actually the toxin is now spreading all over the world because of climate change, or we find more toxin because we do more research on the toxin. It's almost like, you find a lot of criminals simply because there are more criminals, or because you're putting more efforts into finding the criminals. So in this case, we realized that actually it's not. It's not because of climate change. Some people might not like it, but we realized that the reasons why we find more cyanobacterial toxin is that because there are more research done on it. And previously it is there, but nobody do research on it. Nobody knows that it was there. And how we can confirm this is because we also have samples from more than 100 years ago, and it was never being studied for the toxin. But now we studied it and we find it. So basically it was there long time ago and it's still there now. At least for this thing, we probably, for now, we cannot really blame climate change on the spreading of this toxin based on the information that we have. But having said that, I'm not going to say that climate change is not happening, no, or climate change is not bad, but on the rising sea level, of course, it's bad, but not on this cyanobacterial toxin, if that answers the question.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there any other question?
Yeah. So we have one. Sorry. Um, So we have another question. As we know that Antarctica is the coldest, the windest, and the driest area in the world. So maybe Doctor can share how the animals adapt their life in the cold temperature in Antarctica.
Very good question, Faiz. So basically, yeah, so first thing to notice is that a lot of people confused about polar bear. There is no polar bear in Antarctica. Polar bear is actually in the North Pole, Northern Hemisphere, and there is no penguin in the Northern Hemisphere. I mean, almost, and there is a penguin in Southern Hemisphere or in Antarctica. So there is a lot of penguins, but no polar bear. And of course, because the weather is very cold, so they need to do a lot of adaptations. And like whales and penguins, they have a lot of fat, and that's the reason why they can survive there, because otherwise they will be died of coldness. So they do a lot of adaptations on that. And also, if you notice that there are basically no grass in Antarctica because they cannot survive. They are mosses, and they grow very, very slowly. It takes them years and years, and maybe even hundreds of years to grow. So that's why when we walk there, we have to be very careful, because the things that we're stepping on is actually a living museum, because although you see them, they look very small, but in reality, they've been like living for a very long time. So the animals have to adapt very well, especially keeping their fat and making sure that they have sufficient insulation for the cold temperature. So this is basically the mechanisms. But also, if you really think, it's also, if they can do that, it's also an advantage for them, because the predator who actually are not capable of storing that fat there, they cannot go there. And this is like a safe zone for them with these adaptations. So yes, they need to adapt basically on how to preserve the heat. So that's the most fundamental thing that they can do. So if you look at whale, they are big. Penguin, they have a lot of layers, and And the same goes to the seal, where they actually have mechanisms to preserve their body fat. I don't know if that answers the question.
So yeah, I think this is the last question.
Okay.
Your observation during your expedition. So what is the largest population animals in Antarctica?
Okay. I think Faiz, I think my biggest learn is from Antarctic research is I think the lesson basically you're asking me about the lessons learned from Antarctic research. Is that the question, Faiz?
Sorry?
But basically the question is what is the biggest lesson learned from Antarctic research?
Uh, what is the largest population animal?
Oh, that I saw. Okay. So when I was there, actually, I went there twice. So the first time it was Sydney, Maritime, Antarctica, and the second one is Rotorua. But I didn't see a lot of animals when I was in Rotorua because we're actually going even more south. But when I was at the Maritime Antarctica, there are more animals. And the largest population was a penguin and also fur seal. So the fur seal, like I said just now, it was surprising because sometimes you see millions of them, and it was almost extinct before because of hunting. Because they use the fur for expensive jacket. But then, since they stopped the hunting, the population come back. So this is a very good example when human intervention is actually being stopped. Then the population bounce back. So now they can be up to millions of them, which is very nice to see. But I don't know if they are still threatened or not. But yes, the fur seal is the largest population that I've seen. I also see a lot of penguins. But this is very interesting because sometimes you can see hundreds and even thousands of the penguins die, the chicks. There were one day when the chicks were dying because of strong storm. And I think they need to have a lot of individual, and I think the fittest will survive. It's sad to see, but that's real nature. And sometimes after the very strong storm, they're gonna die, but the fittest one will survive. So there is also a lot of penguins with different species. I saw chin strap with a strap on the chin, and Adelie with very nice eyes. And Gen 2, I love Gen 2. I think it looks very beautiful. But that's also the penguin that dies a lot. But I think they're still surviving. Some of them survive, the fittest survive, and of course you cannot avoid natural selection.
So yeah, Dr. I think that's all the question from the viewers. So thank you for your sharing, Dr. Jafran. So we hope that this sharing session can provide us with a new knowledge and inspire the Malaysians out there to set foot on the coldest continent in the world. So I hope to see you again in the next webinar session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much, everyone, for